I'm going to say this bluntly for your listeners and your viewers to consider. For the first time since 1941, in World War II, there is no alliance between the U.S. government and potential European partners. No alliance.
There was talk of President Zelensky heading off to Washington, as we all know, as soon as Friday, to get assurances on security, get that minerals deal over the line. But just moments ago, word from a White House official was this: what's the point if he hasn't made up his mind? If the Ukrainian leader says the deal isn't finalised, I don't see why an invitation would make sense. And that was to the news agency Reuters. The doubts came after Zelensky gave a news conference this afternoon. He commented on his upcoming trip to the States.
This visit before Putin is a very good signal. First of all, I think so. I don't know how it will be, because I'm still in the capital, so we will see. Yes, but so what is important? That signal that before that we can ask each other very important questions, as I said, and to get answers. And before Putin. And of course, before Putin will meet with the president, if they will meet, and other, it's a decision of the President Trump.
So would US security guarantees be enough? He said Ukraine would continue to work with other partners.
We are ready, to be flexible and to speak about it, what one or another country have to recommend or guarantee. That's why in this deal, there are only, basic things about that. Yes, security guarantees and etc. But I think it's not about it. Next steps have to be about it. Without future security guarantees, we will not have really just peace, and we will not have really ceasefire, what Trump spoken about. And if we don't have it, nothing will work.
Everything hangs on getting those security guarantees. So let's first touch in with Alistair Dorber, the Times correspondent in Washington. Hello to you, Alistair.
Hi, John. Good morning.
Welcome. Lovely to have you here, especially since we're trying to just keep pace with all of this that's going on, Alistair. Tell me, what can you tell us about these latest words from the White House?
Well, I think they put in jeopardy Friday's meeting. Donald Trump spoke last night, saying that he was expecting Zelensky to turn up on Friday. I mean, he might pass Keir Starmer in the waiting room as Keir Starmer leaves after his meetings with Donald Trump on Thursday. That meeting, though, with Volodymyr Zelensky now looks to be in jeopardy. And as you've suggested, the sticking point seems to be the Ukrainian insistence that the deal includes security guarantees to deter future Russian aggression. I think they think that, yes, the minerals deal makes sense. That puts America in the Ukraine. It gives America significant interest in the Ukraine, but it doesn't necessarily, without these security guarantees, deter a future invasion by the Russians. And that appears to be the sticking point. Now, you played a clip there a second ago from the Ukrainian president's press conference in Kyiv this morning. He went on to say that a lot of these deals could be thrashed out during Friday's meeting.
Yeah.
The American position seems to be, well, there's no point having this meeting at all unless these deals have been thrashed out in advance.
Yeah.
We've seen various drafts of this deal, and none yet contain what the Ukrainians really want, which, as we say, is this security guarantee.
I'm almost, Alistair, lost for words, but I will say, my goodness me. I mean, we do know when that high-powered American team from Team Trump was in Kyiv a few days ago, they did try to get Volodymyr Zelensky to sign this minerals deal, or a draft of this minerals deal, before he'd had a chance even to read it. And so looking at what's going on now, Alistair, it sort of suggests that the White House was maybe hoping to bounce Zelensky into signing a deal on Friday in a couple of days, while Zelensky was there hoping for the exact opposite, to persuade Trump to give the guarantees that he hasn't given in his face-to-face talks.
I think that's a pretty accurate analysis of the situation. The Americans want this done and dusted quickly. It's clear that relations, certainly between Trump and Zelensky, have broken down over the last few weeks, and I suspect between American and Ukrainian officials too. The Americans, as you suggested, want to tie this up neatly. They want a ceasefire by Easter. They want a peace deal to come out of that. And what the Americans really don't want is to commit themselves to a security force, to boots on the ground, to having some sort of open-ended guarantee to ensure that Russia doesn't act against Ukraine the way it did 3 years ago. Now, obviously, to Volodymyr Zelensky, that's hugely important. He doesn't want to sign a deal that gives away huge elements of his country's valuable mineral resources without something in return. And that seems to be the sticking point at the moment, both that and the timing of when this deal can be done.
Yeah, I mean, meanwhile, Alistair, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, he's in the air. He left about, an hour and a quarter ago. Maybe he's just about clearing the west coast of Ireland now, heading off across the North Atlantic. You've got to wonder, and what would be the point of him landing, as he's going to land in Washington, with all of this still in the air, so much still not resolved?
It's a route I know well. I think what Keir Starmer is trying to do is trying to exert the pressure that the Europeans can do over Donald Trump. I mean, we had Emmanuel Macron here on Monday. He talked up the need for Ukraine's security and the need for Ukraine to be satisfied with the deal. I think every time we've heard from Keir Starmer over the last week or so on this issue, he's said the same thing. I think that European leaders, European capitals are very nervous about giving what appears to be a victory to Russia, rewarding it for its invasion. Without and if that's the deal we are going to end up at, without a guarantee to Ukraine that the same thing can't happen again. Of course, Keir Starmer has to tread lightly. There's the issue of trade that he's got to be conscious of, and he doesn't want Britain to be punished in any trade talks with Washington. There's the Chagos Islands, which is a delicate subject. The Americans are none too happy with the Brits over the deal over the Chagos Islands. So Keir Starmer's going to have to tread lightly. But I think that his message on Ukraine will be, there needs to be something left on the table for the Ukrainians to claim as their own.
Just the last quick question, Alistair, and thank you so much for coming on this evening. Later on, in the next couple of hours, are we going to hear from Donald Trump in one of those interesting, unpredictable discussions that he has in the White House with reporters? And what about his spokesman? Will she be talking?
Well, as luck would have it, we might have two opportunities today to hear from Donald Trump. He's about to start a cabinet meeting. The American cabinet meets a lot less frequently than, say, a British cabinet. It's fairly ad hoc, but he's having the first of his administration, and he's allowing the cameras in to the start of that. And then at 3:00, which is becoming a sort of almost a daily event, he's going to invite the cameras in again, we think, to the Oval Office for him to sign some more executive orders. Just my last tally up, he's signed almost 80 since he came into office just over a month ago. We're going to get more of them this afternoon. We don't know what yet,
right.
But that will be another opportunity, and another opportunity for reporters to ask him questions about the latest on Ukraine.
All right, well, we better be watching that, hadn't we? And hopefully we can keep in touch, Alistair. Thank you so much for that update. Now, let's get the thoughts and the judgment of our defence editor at the Times, Larissa Brown, here with me in the studio. Hello to you, Larissa.
Hello.
It's lovely to see you here. And also we're joined on the line by Scott Lucas, who's a professor of American Studies at Birmingham University. Hello to you, Scott.
Very good to be here, John.
Thank you for joining us. Larissa, can I come to you first? Just tell us a little bit more about the idea of an American security guarantee for Ukraine. If there's a ceasefire, if there are European boots on the ground to watch that ceasefire, an American guarantee, a backstop, what kind of force or what kind of guarantee, because we're not talking about American boots on the ground, would that need to be?
I had a briefing last week from some Western officials, and they were talking about this exact thing. And one thing that the Brits and the French are really keen on is that there is this US backstop. So any troops on the ground in Ukraine would be protected by the Americans, essentially. And what this could involve is something to do with air power aircraft, was what we were told.
Yeah.
So the way that I sort of envisage it is you'd have potentially American aircraft in places like Poland, and they would be able to respond to any threat from Russia.
Yes.
And obviously the wider point would be that they're guaranteeing Ukraine's security because they're, involved in the whole peacekeeping force generally.
Right, and where we're talking about a British presence, military presence on the ground in Ukraine, and for that matter in the air over Ukraine, we're talking about British troops not right up there at the frozen front line, because that's what it would conceivably involve, but some way back. And meanwhile, at the front line, maybe RAF jets, or at least British military jets, overflying there, over Ukrainian airspace.
Yes, the military chiefs that I've been speaking to are incredibly nervous about having British troops, along that kind of conflict line. And what they envisage is having, up to 30,000 troops from European nations at key sites across Ukraine. So this would be, key cities, critical national infrastructure, and also ports. And they would basically ensure that those sites were protected. And then in addition, you might have things like some sort of technical support, maybe drones, intelligence and surveillance aircraft hoovering up data, making sure that they're aware of what the Russians might be planning, and potentially then also Typhoon aircraft that would carry out air policing missions, and they would be on alert for any Russian activity.
All right, but crucially, you would not have American military boots on the ground. You would not have American aircraft in the air over Ukraine. So, Scott Lucas, a professor at University of Birmingham, tell me this if you can, Scott. The Ukrainian leader, he is saying, of course, that a mineral deal with America needs to be linked to an American security guarantee. It's not set down clearly in black and white in the draft deal that he's being asked to sign. Is it wishful thinking, Scott, on the part of Volodymyr Zelensky?
No, it's part of a viable plan, but it all depends on getting adults in the room in the Trump administration. And this viable plan, join up 3 events this week. Join up the minerals deal with Emmanuel Macron in Washington on Monday and Keir Starmer there tomorrow. And as Larissa was explaining, what you have is that British and French troops and possibly other members of NATO would be in Western Ukraine to be part of air defenses. They would be part of guarding energy infrastructure, which is vital for Ukraine to keep going. And they would be part of protecting facilities like drone manufacturing plants, where Ukraine's establishing an advantage. Now, to make that work, as Larissa explained, you need that air power in Poland and probably in Romania. And America has the best air resources to do that.
Right.
So what Macron was trying to do and Keir Starmer was trying to do was to edge the Americans towards this. You don't need to put boots on the ground. You don't have to be physically present, but we do need you to be part of this at the same time that the minerals deal was being confirmed.
Right. So Scott, if we're not then talking about American forces on the ground, potentially in harm's way, because we are talking about being there at a time of a ceasefire, why is Donald Trump so obviously reluctant to agree to that? Because
Donald Trump is acting as a businessman. He's acting like the head of the Trump organization rather than a U.S. president that is interested in security, not even security of the United States, let alone Ukraine or Europe. So when he looks at that deal, all he looks at is, can we make money out of the minerals deal? And then can we leave the security of Ukraine up to Europe? But it's not just Trump that thinks that. Remember J.D. Vance, the vice president, and Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, only 2 weeks ago at the Munich Security Conference? What they effectively said is, Europe, this is up to you. We're not going to be part of this. And that is the problem, is that those officials around Trump are effectively saying, get whatever money you can out of Ukraine, but don't commit to any type of measures needed to enforce a ceasefire.
Well, we can see why that. You can see, Scott, why that's being described by so many as being, well, such a mercenary attitude. We're not even talking about American troops being on the ground, potentially in harm's way. It is not too much, some might argue, to ask from America in support of historic Western European allies.
John, I'm going to say this bluntly for your listeners and your viewers to consider. For the first time since 1941, in World War II, there is no alliance between the U.S. government and potential European partners. No alliance. Donald Trump does not think of this as an alliance. J.D. Vance does not think of it as an alliance. Pete Hegseth does not think of it as an alliance. Now, other Trump officials still do. The envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, does, for example. But he's been sidelined. And importantly, remember that another sign of the breaking down of this alliance is that Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who will be at that cabinet meeting today, their mission is not to protect American agencies that are part of that alliance, but to purge them, including purges of the Pentagon.
All right, Scott, Lucas, thank you so much for your perspective. Last one to you, Larissa. I mean, Scott puts it pretty starkly, doesn't he? Effectively saying the Western alliance that we've known is history, that it's dead. Is that view widely shared in the sort of higher levels at the Ministry of Defence and the people that you talk to all of the time? When Keir Starmer addresses this, he says there's no need to look at it in those terms. But how do they look at it in reality and privately when they talk to you?
Well, yesterday we had a briefing from the Ministry of Defence, and they were really keen to get across the point that they think that, you know, our relationship remains unchanged. We do need to step up our capabilities, but basically we're still friends with America. However, this evening we've got a story out on the website which is going to be revealing some interesting conversations. We've had US officials coming to the UK in recent weeks, and I've been told that they were basically saying that the British government should no longer rely on American kit, and that actually, you know, there's a feeling in the US administration that we've been able to buy American kit too cheaply. And should there be sort of an end to this? Should they ramp up the prices? And US officials are basically saying to people here in the UK, you know, you need to watch out because anything could happen, and you need to stop relying on American kit. And then I spoke to an army source today, and the army source was saying to me that actually, you know, there's going to be a big focus on buying British equipment, and part of that thinking is that, yes, you know, we don't want to be relying on American kit anymore. So that's pretty sort of damning stuff.
This is really startling. This is your story later on appearing in one of the digital edition of the Times, and I imagine pretty prominently on the front page. It's going to be a crowded front page tomorrow. Larissa, thank you so much for your thoughts and that particular update, which you can read for yourself on times.com a little bit later on. This story moves so quickly, and there's another layer for you to keep your eye on from our very own Larissa Brown. Larissa, again, thank you.